Welcome to topic number 3 of semantics. This topic is known as componential analysis. The term componential analysis was proposed by the structural semantists with an aim to analyze word meaning. Remember that semantics is all about the meanings of words. It could also be the meanings of phrases, sentences, and so on. Okay, so when the term componential analysis was proposed, the whole aim was to analyze word meaning. Okay, the approach itself is based upon the belief that the meaning of a word can be analyzed in terms of meaning components, which are referred to as semantic features. If you can recall what we talked about in the previous topic, especially those different types of meanings. We came across one of the types of meaning which said that the meaning of a word involves looking at the basic components of a word. So with componential analysis, it's almost the same thing. When we're talking about the meaning of something, we look at the features or the basic components of a particular word that we have in mind. So this approach has long been used to analyze the meaning of certain types of nouns. And the approach involves the use of the plus signs as well as the minus sign. And the plus sign and minus signs, these two signs are used in order to say whether a word that you have in mind has certain components or not. So the approach uses plus and minus signs to indicate whether a certain semantic feature is present or absent in the meaning of a word. And these feature symbols are usually written in capitalized letters. So, for instance, you may be asked to analyze a word such as man, or a word such as woman, boy, and girl, according to the approach, according to the componential analysis. So, if you are asked to analyze words such as man, woman, boy, and girl, you need to think about the basic components of these four words. So what are the basic components? What are the features of these words? And when you have those features, you present them in the form of plus or minus signs. Okay, so to begin with, let's consider the word man. When you have a word such as man, man is a human. Man is an adult, and also man is a male. Okay, so using the plus and minus signs that we've talked about, then you can say, because we're saying that man is a human, then we use a plus sign. So plus human, and man is an adult, plus adult, and man is a male, then plus male. Moving on to the second word, woman. We know that a woman is also a human. We know that a woman is also an adult. We also know that a woman is a female. Okay, so when we have components like human, components like adult, and also male, then we can say, because we've said that a woman is a female, then a woman cannot be male, so it is a minus male. But we know a woman is a human, and a woman is also an adult, so hence they use plus human and also plus adult. Okay, and then the word boy, a boy is also a human, so plus human, but a boy is not an adult. Because a boy is not an adult, we use a minus sign. And we know a boy is a male, so a plus male. But on the contrary, when we look at the word girl is not a male. Okay, because the word girl is not a male, we are here using a minus sign because girl is not male, so minus male. But with the other components, we know a girl is a human, so plus human. We also know that a girl is not an adult, so minus adult, just like the way we saw with a boy. Okay, so what we see here are the basic components of the words man, woman, boy, and girl. And the way we have analyzed those four words, man, woman, boy, and girl, is similar to the way a phoneme can also be analyzed. A phoneme is analyzed into smaller components called distinctive features, as shown below. When we consider a phoneme ba, okay, and also a phoneme pa, we know that ba is a plosive, it is a bilabial, and it is also voiced. While for pa, it is also a plosive, it is also a bilabial, but it is not voiced, so minus voiced. So similarly to the way we analyze the words man, woman, girl, and boy, the phonemes can also be analyzed in a similar manner, like the way we've seen ba and pa. Okay. Componential analysis has some advantages. Okay. It has some advantages, and now we're going to consider these advantages. When we're looking at man and woman, as well as boy and girl, we saw that these four words have certain things in common. Okay. For instance, we saw that man is a human, we saw that woman is a human, and similarly boy and girl are also humans. Okay. So from this we can say that we are able to group entities into some classes. Okay. So we can consider all those four words that we saw earlier on, man, woman, boy, and girl, as humans. So we are able to group entities into classes, so the class of human in this case. But now, looking at the pair man and boy, okay, we considered man as human, we considered boy as human, we considered boy as human, and we also considered boy as male. Okay, so we are able to group man and boy into human and male. Okay, and we are also able to group woman and girl into human and plus female. Okay, so we are also seeing here that man and woman could belong to one class defined by the features human plus other. So what we see here is that componential analysis is something that can enable us to group entities into some natural classes, as we've seen with the pairs man and boy, and also with the pair man and woman. Okay, and apart from enabling us to group entities into natural classes, the componential analysis also enables us to analyze verb meaning. It enables us to analyze verb meaning. Okay, even though the semantic components are not represented by binary features. When we're looking at verbs, it is difficult for us to analyze verbs in terms of the binary features using the plus or minus signs that we've seen when we are trying to analyze words such as man and boy. Okay, so even though the verbs may not be analyzed or may not be represented by the plus and minus, features for representing the basic components. One example is the way the meaning of the verb go may be analyzed to represent change of various sorts. Okay, we're going to see this in the next slide. So consider the word go in terms of position. When we consider the word go, okay, we normally think about the position, maybe of an individual, the position of a person, the position of an object. So we think about position of go. Okay, so if we have in mind a person who has moved from one place to another, as we see here in the sentence, Chimwemwe went from Lilongwe to Blantyre. The word go in terms of position is trying to tell us more about the position of this person. He was initially in Lilongwe, but now has moved to another place, which is Blantyre. Okay, and the very same word go can also be thought of in terms of possession. All right, so you can see here we are trying to analyze the word go in terms of position. We're also trying to analyze the word go in terms of possession. Okay, so you may possess something today, but tomorrow that something may belong to another person. So today you may have that particular something, but on another day the something that we're talking about may belong to another person. So this is what we're talking about, possession of go. So the inheritance went to Maria. So it means the inheritance belonged to one person, to a certain individual, but now it is gone to another person. So the inheritance went to Maria. So we're trying to analyze the word go now in terms of possession. Okay, the very same word go can also be analyzed in terms of identification. okay, in terms of how you can identify an individual. How do you identify me? How do people identify you? Okay, so they may identify you as a responsible person, as we see in this example. Yohani went from being a responsible gentleman to a notorious crook. So today you are identified as a responsible person, but on another day you are a different person, a notorious crook. Componential analysis is allowing us to analyze the word go in different ways, in terms of position, in terms of possession, and also in terms of identification. And also, continuing with advantages, we can also see that the concept go is manifested in many verbs other than just go, as illustrated below. Remember the position of go that we looked at previously, and also the possession of go, and also the identification of go. Okay? Position of go can also be represented, in other verbs. So what we are trying to say here is that position of go is present in the meaning of fly. When you have the word fly, if a person is flying, or if an insect is flying, it means the insect itself is moving from one position to another. Okay, so we have the position of go in the verb fly, and we also have the position of go in the verb walk. Okay, because when you're walking, you move from one place to another, you change positions. So position of go can also be represented in other verbs apart from the word go itself. So in other verbs like we've seen here, in verbs like fly and also walk. And now moving on to possession of go. Possession of go can also be manifested in other verbs, in other words as well. Okay, so like verbs give, verb buy, and also the verb inherit. When you give an object to somebody, they say when you give a book to somebody, it means that the book is no longer possessed by the first individual who had it. Okay, so there is that possession of go. The book now, in this case, may belong to another person. In the same way, the word buy can also tell us more about the possession of go. When you buy something, okay, you buy something from another individual. I buy a book from John. I can buy a book from John. So it means initially that book belonged to John, the possession. He is the one who possessed the book, who had the book. But now, because I've bought it, I'm the one who possessed the book. So the possession of go can also exist, can also be manifested in the word buy. The possession of go can also be manifested in the word inherit. So when you inherit something from somebody, it means that you may inherit a house, you may inherit some wealth of some kind. So it means that the person who had the wealth initially possessed that wealth. But now, because you have inherited, you are the one who possessed it. So we have the possession of go being manifested in the verb inherit. Okay, and now identification of go. Identification of go. Remember what we saw previously? The verb go may be manifested in the meaning of become. It also tend to. He became a notorious criminal. He turned into a beautiful lady. Okay, so now if we say he became a notorious criminal, it means that the person is no longer being identified as the way he was identified before, but now he has become something else. Okay, and then if we say she turned into a beautiful woman, it means initially the person was not a beautiful woman, but now she has become a beautiful woman. Okay, another example that we see here is that the caterpillar turned into a butterfly. What we see here are some of the advantages of componential analysis. We are able to analyze certain words in certain ways, as we've seen how the concept go can be manifested in several ways, like in several words, several verbs, such as walk, buy, and also turn into. Apart from those two advantages, componential analysis may also allow us to uncover and represent similarities among semantically related words. Okay, going back to the 4 words that we saw earlier on, man, woman, boy, and girl. Okay, we see some similarities among these 4 individuals. There are some similarities. They are all human. Okay, they are all human.